Greetings, welcome back to another episode of the Death, Taxes, and Sports podcast. My name is Jeff Long. We're here with episode 106. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Mr. Ben Holloway himself. Looks like it'll be us two. Hope your other colleagues will show up. Maybe Gary's waking up from his eternal slumber from another terrible showing by those G-men. But hey, all love, Gary. Look forward to bringing you back. But Ben Holloway, how are you doing, Cowboys fan, sir?
Doing all right, sir. Doing all right. Just talking sports with buddies. Can't get any better than that.
Hey, cheers to that. Cheers to that. There's definitely been a lot of exciting storylines that we're going to be getting to. So tonight we'll be discussing Week 5, the NFL season, making our World Series picks, some pretty intriguing matchups thus far, discussing the NFL MVP race, and as well as the competitive AFC North. Today, for me, is going to be No Stats Monday. I'm specifically only going to be talking from my own perspective. How does that sound to you, Ben?
Let's do it. Let's roll with it.
All right. Let's get this thing going. So the first topic here, of course, this had to be the first topic. The New England Patriots and as well as Denver Broncos. More disappointing to 1-4 start. But for me, I think it's obvious, but I'll pass the baton to you first, sir.
So Patriots, for me, right now we're most disappointing team, Patriots or Broncos. For me, it's the Patriots. They've scored 55 points in total in 5 games. Their last 2 games was 72-3 combined. And if you want to throw in the Jets win, that was ugly, 2000s football where they scored 15 points. The last 3 weeks, the New England Patriots have a total of 18 points. Like, how do you win 18 points in the last 3 games? Like, come on. And that's after, by the way, the reason I put them as most disappointing, because they were first 2 games, they were really competitive. They lost to the Eagles 25-20. They lost to Miami 24-17. 2 teams that are obviously, one's 5-0, one's 4-1. So you play them in tight games, and then don't know what happened after that. But man, it's bad, man. Anytime you score 55 points in 5 games, like that's horrible. That's horrible.
I mean, it's like, with both these teams, man, it's like comparing apples to, I mean, you can either say comparing apples to apples or oranges to oranges. But I think for me is that, yes, the Patriots have been absolutely horrendous. I still think that there becomes a question after back-to-back blowout losses. Should there be a change in New England? Not saying you do it now, but I definitely think that Bill Belichick has earned enough goodwill by 6 Lombardi trophies to be able to choose his out. But I think now it's kind of started thinking about, does Bill O'Brien take over? Josh McDaniels gets fired. I think that's already shown that he's not worthy of a head coaching job again, so we won't go back to that. But for me, I think it's all about the expectations. I still think what the Patriots' expectation was that they were going to be marginally competitive in games and not necessarily getting blown out. But for me, the Denver Broncos, and I say it not because as a fan of the team, but I'm saying coming into the season, I was cautiously optimistic. And I think that, one, didn't expect them to get blown up 70-23. Didn't expect that. But secondly, what Sean Payton was going to be able to bring was a level of discipline with this team, especially on the interior offensive line. We average about maybe 5 false start penalties in 3 straight games, which has killed us specifically when we're driving to about, we have a big play or we'll have a false start or we'll have a big play, but then there's a holding. It's the same type of mistakes and attention to detail that we thought that Sean Payton was going to be able to maybe elevate. With that, albeit I do think Russ has looked a little bit better, but that still hasn't resonated with wins. I don't want to hear any more about how good Russell Wilson's doing. It's not good enough to win. I mean, that's just what it comes down to.
I know you've watched a lot more Denver, so I was a little bit curious to see, because we were talking a little bit about, Wilson's numbers, and I was saying how, 11 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but I was looking, and the QBR is just medium. Like the QB rating is number 5 in the league, but total quarterback rating, which we know takes into account a lot more factors, is only 45. So then I was like, well, then 11-2 is not telling the whole story. And you're saying how his turnovers, his fumbles have been at the worst times and stuff like that. So
and that's what I'm saying. Like with quarterbacks, and we've said this before, with the Kirk Cousins or with a dude from LA. There's good quarterbacks, but then there's great quarterbacks. The Burrows, the Jalen Hurts just recently Jalen Hurts. Joe Burrow, and as well as Pat Mahomes, what makes them great is to be able to come up in clutch moments when they're not necessarily doing well. That's why I kind of have Josh Allen a peg down from those guys because it's horrendous turnovers in the red zone. Russell Wilson has played better and he's looked a little bit more agile. But at the end of the day, the game against the Commanders, for instance, we were driving. We had a chance to go up 28-3. He turns it over. Then instead of us going up 28-3, it is now 21-14 going in at halftime. Probably would have put the game away. So to me, it's just the lack of discipline for me. It's once again, we should be 4-1. There are 3 games we really could have won. We could have won against the Jets. We could have won against the Commanders, and we could have won against
Vegas.
In the Vegas.
Lost by 1 first week.
Yeah, right. And Ben, like, it's just the constant same thing of losing games we should win, and that's what's aggravating.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You know, bringing Peyton in, you know, you have definitely a little bit of expectation. To be fair, like you said, Wilson has played better, but 1 win is 1 win. Like, that's what it is.
Against a Chicago, like, we got to stop this notion. This is my gripe. My only gripe is to my Broncos country is that we got to stop thinking that we're 1 quarterback away. We have not been 1 quarterback away since that 2016 championship. Peyton Manning, on his last leg, dragged us to the championship. We weren't overwhelmingly better to win that year. So we got to stop thinking
that defense was phenomenal.
Right, exactly.
But to his credit, I remember. Sorry, Jeff, didn't mean, but I do remember the AFC Championship game when they played the Patriots. Peyton got him up, I think, 21-3 or 14-3.
Yeah,
so Peyton still played. He still played relatively well. The defense definitely did, you know, carry him, but he still had to make some plays. So
yeah, and I would say that we lost that trade, and we'll move on here. I definitely think we lost that trade. And would you say that this trade has put us back 2 or 3 years? Because I think it has.
I mean, you gave up so, and the thing is, it's not even just the Russ. You gave up draft picks to get Peyton too. So it's like you gave. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, the draft haul, don't feel like looking it up, but I feel like you gave up at least 5 picks to get those 2.
Yep.
Like 5 or 6 picks, and then you see the results.
Yeah, and not just that, but also Charlie Bradley Chubb in the middle of last season, and we have failed to get the same type of pass rush since he has left. Gary Johnson looking fresh.
Evening, gentlemen.
You just get from the barber?
A little while ago. I decided the homeless vagrant look wasn't going to work for me anymore, so I decided to clean it.
Okay. All right, my man out here looking like he about to start a protest or something. I love it. How you doing, sir?
I'm hanging in there. How you guys doing?
Good, man. Good. Let's get you in on this thing, man.
I was gonna say, Gary, you got the last word. Patriots or Broncos?
More disappointing. Go ahead, Gary. I mean, Ben, you're gonna finish.
No, Gary, it's on you, dog.
Yeah.
Who is more disappointing?
Let's see where you go. You're the deciding vote.
Again, this is like thinking about who is the world's smartest horse. In this case, I'm going to lean toward, I guess, the disappointment. I mean, they're both, it's a lot. It's weird because like they're both extremely disappointing because when you consider the pedigree of the Patriots, you consider all the bravado and the hype, and, you know, Russell Wilson finally gets a good coach again, and he gets a good offense.
So let's throw these perspectives, okay? And I'm just going to sum it up for both of us here. Ben says the Patriots, which I can't be mad at. And he gave some very good stats. What were those stats again, Ben?
They have scored a total of 55 points in 5 games.
Okay.
I mean, that's
back-to-back blown-out losses.
Mm-hmm.
But with Denver, Gary, to me, it's about expectation as far as, for me, anywhere between 7 to 10 wins was what I was expecting. Maybe 7, 8 wins. But it's discipline. That's the thing. They still have the same false starts. They still have the same penalties. And we spent $75 million in guaranteed dollars in our offensive line, and we're still giving up the same amount of sacks as we did last year. That's why I say Denver.
I'm only going to say the Patriots because we thought like they weren't going to be the best team in the AFC East. Like I feel like everybody could safely assume that. But we didn't think they were going to be this bad either. Denver, it was an uphill battle because you still had, Kansas City, and you still to a slightly lesser extent the Chargers to kind of contend with. Las Vegas is what it is, like, whatever with them, but like you had two teams that were clearly better than you in the AFC West. The Patriots were thought this year's AFC East should have been like last year's NFC East, where everybody finished either at or above 500. And when your worst team is a 500 record, that speaks volumes to how good and how tough that division is. The Patriots are not showing anything close to that. This is literally this is as bad as those Browns teams that he coached that Bill Belichick coached in the 90s. And I think it's starting to show signs of age, that his style of football may not be effective anymore, how he's been able to recruit players, how he's been able to pick up free agents at and all that. Like, it's not the same. You're not getting the same like high level players that want to play the Patriot way and want to play in that system. That system's now become passe. So for that reason, I'm leaning more towards the Patriots, just because you've never seen this from the last time we saw this from a Bill Belichick team was in the 90s, before he was who he ended up being.
Hey, facts. And you know what, gentlemen, what I'm starting to sense within college football and as well as in the NFL is two buddies in Nick Saban and as well as Bill Belichick. They don't have that zest anymore. You notice how in Alabama, they're still a good team, but they're not, like Bill Belichick has rode the coattails off of Tom Brady for years. And if he never had Tom Brady, he wouldn't be Bill Belichick. I think there's enough of a sample size to admit that. Will we agree? Okay. So
yeah, but you could play that game, and I don't mean to disagree, but just to throw it. Anyways, let me finish what I was going to say. Phil Jackson had Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Like, the great coaches still need great players.
Yeah, but I think the game of basketball is a little bit different in when it comes to how you can control. I feel you can have more control over the outcome of a game in basketball as a coach versus NFL, because NFL, it's about field position, a couple of lucky breaks. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a great quarterback, it's hard to really game plan around a bad quarterback. Versus NBA, you can maybe game plan a little bit if your best player is not there. You can run a couple screens. I get what you're saying, but I just think that because of the sports, I think it's just a little bit different. But I totally understand your perspective, and I most certainly appreciate that. But Gary and Ben, any final thoughts before we move to AFC North? You first, Gary, then Ben.
I mean, really, like I said, both teams here, they had high hopes, or at least for the Patriots, they expect to play better than they've been playing. And same thing for Denver. Of the two, if you had to ask me a question, gun to my head, who I think would have a better chance of improving this season, it without question would be Denver. I don't think they're as bad as they've been playing. The Patriots are just, that system's broken. So
yeah. And you, Ben?
No, I got nothing. I'm ready to go to the AFC North.
Here's what I'm going to say about Denver. Average team, average players. There's maybe one or two. We don't even have really any great players. The only great player that we have is Patrick Surtain, who I think is arguably the best cornerback in the league. But again, we can debate that another day. AFC North, gentlemen. AFC North. This one's going to be interesting. Who I think is going to win, I'm just going to say it. I still think the Bengals, despite the 2-3 start. Because for me, it's about the quarterback that you trust most. I think Joe Burrow has the highest likelihood of not causing you a game. And I think that looking at that game with the Ravens, they gave up. The last two seasons, they have cost themselves too many games making dumb mistakes. And I get the injuries, but Lamar Jackson has got to play better. And he was the reason why they lost that last game. I trust Burrow. That game against Arizona is a get-right game for them. They've had 0-2 starts. They have had bad starts before, but I think they'll get healthy, and I think that they're the best team in the division, and I'm going to say they're going to win. What say you, Ben and Gary?
So I agree. The Ravens, it's like they seem to lose games that, like, holy crap, what are you doing? How did you, what happened? And by the way, their two losses last year, 2 losses this year, fit that perfectly. You lost to the Colts 22-19. That game was at home. And then you just lost to the Steelers 17-10. Those two games you easily could have won, and you'd be 5-0 right now. Like your roster is better than the Colts, and your roster is better. And I get it. It's division opponent. It's a whole totally different story. But like they seem to lose, games that they should win. And but despite saying that, I did still roll with them to win the division, and part of it is schedule. So first off, they have played 3 away division games. They should have won all 3, but they lost to the Steelers. So they played 3 road games in the division, 2-1. Out of their next 8 games, 6 of them are at home. I get they lost to the Colts at home, so I understand that. But based upon schedule and also based upon the fact that before Lamar got hurt the last 2 years, and that's the big question, but before he got hurt, they were in first place the last 2 years. So for me, at least right now, I would say the Ravens, and those are my reasons. Gary, what you got?
Gary, real quick, Ben, confidence to you guys, and they get confidence meter 1 through 10. Ben, what do you say? And then Gary will toss it to you. Confident? How confident are you
on the Ravens?
The Ravens. Yeah.
I'd go 7.
Okay, sounds good. Gary, what about you? Team confidence rating. Feel free to explain.
So I'm gonna lean towards Cincinnati. I think they are physically getting themselves together. I think, losing T. Higgins is not, it's bad, but when you have a Jamar Chase who literally told you he's open all the time and usually is, you can afford to lose that option. Frankly, I think T. Higgins is starting to – he's slowly descending into that, like, Tyler Boyd third option that, looks good and should be a more credible threat than he actually is. But I digress. Still, T. Higgins being missing is a problem. But you look at that team in its totality. Defense is getting better. That offensive line has improved considerably. Getting Orlando Brown Jr. is as much of a game changer for that team as you can have. And I think this team will go as Joe Burrow goes. And as long as that calf injury remains a calf injury and doesn't start to creep its way down into Achilles land, I think they can right this ship. And we've seen teams, your Kansas Cities, your Patriots teams of the past, where they had a slow start or they looked very, it's almost like the first couple of weeks the Bengals seemed uninterested. Like, obviously they had a must-win situation where they had to where Burrow had to play through injury to kind of like right the ship for their season. But there was definitely a level of like, all right, we'll turn it on when we need to turn it on. And, when it's all said and done in January, it's going to be us in Kansas City. I feel like that was their mindset, and they're realizing like, hey, getting back to the dance is a lot harder than getting there the first time. So, I think that this last 2 weeks have been more of a wake-up call, and I think I see themselves. I think that's going to be a division where the winner wins maybe 10 games, 11. It's going to be one of those, like, it's going to be a dog fight, and it's going to be a lot of these teams kind of canceling each other out. So I do think that today Cincinnati will be the last one standing for the AFC North.
Like, I think if I had to rank them, I would say Cincinnati, Ravens, Steelers. Even though the Steelers won that game against the Ravens, I trust Lamar Jackson a lot better as far as his upside versus Kenny Pickett. But I will say Pickens, man, that dude's something special. And then the Browns, just them losing Nick Chubb was just that was a tough one. And I'm just not sure about Deshaun Watson. Something in the juju just isn't making sense to me. But Ben, like, I'll tell you what, man, like Lamar Jackson, big contract, you got your money. You got to show up at these big times. I mean, you got to. I don't.
Hey, Jeff, real quick. Sorry. This is just funny more than anything else. So the Steelers and Ravens, their points for and their points against are almost identical in the opposite direction. So points scored for Pittsburgh is 79. Points allowed for Pittsburgh is 110. So points scored for the Ravens is 109. And points against is 75. It's just crazy that the number is almost exactly the same. So it's a minus 31 differential for Pittsburgh and plus 34 for Baltimore. It's just funny to me. Those numbers are very, very, very similar.
Oh, no doubt. But here's what I'm going to say. I think in 3 episodes from now, I'll say episode 110, I think we need to come back and look at Cincy because the next 3 games against Seattle, San Francisco, Buffalo, they got to come at least 2-1 out of those 3. I think they can beat Seattle, but I think they're going to beat Seattle. But to have San Francisco and Buffalo back to back playing those defenses,
yeah, that's a challenge. That's a challenge for sure.
I think they'll beat Buffalo because I think they match it very well offensively against them. But San Francisco is just playing out of this world right now. But anyway, let's just continue this on. Week 5, Dolphins or Chiefs? Who is the best AFC team right now? We got to play the Chiefs this Thursday. We turn around and then lose, and we got to play the Chiefs. We're not going to get that win. It's going to be lost 16 in a row. 16 in a row. Anyway, I'm just going to make this very simple, guys. I'll throw it to you, Gary. By the numbers. I think it's Dolphins hands down. First in passing, 327.8 yards. I said there was going to be no stats, but whatever. First in rushing, 185.8. And then first in points, 36.2. They're 4-1 in their division, but that Achane injury just kind of came out of nowhere. That one was like, damn. It's like when they finally have a good running game, it's like, but they still got Jeff Wilson and Mostert, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm going to say the Dolphins. Their wins have been better. Their quality of wins. They've just been winning at a higher clip. That's simple. But Gary, your thoughts? Dolphins or Chiefs? Best team.
Dolphins, and you kind of like you said it right before I could. The Achane injury, that is devastating. Obviously, out of nowhere, you don't know how long he's gonna be out for. But it's fun to have this problem where you have that injury, then you have Jeff Wilson just coming off the IR, and it's like, oh, yeah, he was good too. So we can
Richard.
There's a little bit of like a little like, all right, plug and play man up, and the next man up is one of the best runners in the game. So for that reason, I'm leaning Miami over Kansas City. I think that Kansas City, when it's all said and done, will be playing football longer this season than Miami because Miami has not been tested. But I think that this has been a tremendous start, and this is what we've all talked about. We talked about it all preseason. We've talked about it throughout the year. If Tua can stay healthy with that offense, shoot, like I know the topic's gonna come up later on, or I don't see why Tua can't be the MVP based off of what he's done thus far, and the schedule. I think the schedule certainly helps. They are benefiting the same way the Giants benefited last year by having a little bit of a scrub schedule where, yes, you have some tough opponents early, but like if you really look at their schedule, like where as the season progresses, there's no reason why they can't be a 12 or 13 win team. And I think that they're going to be trouble. I don't know how long they'll be trouble in the playoffs, but I think that they're going to be a team that absolutely nobody wants to play. And frankly, if there's a team that can challenge Kansas City for that 1 seed, it could be them.
And then Ben, like we talk about Miami, I feel like Miami's like that. It's like that. Miami's like that cute little girl in the cafeteria that you want to talk to, but you just can't take seriously yet because you don't know how she's going to be. She's flirtatious. She tells you what you want to hear when you want to hear it, but then she'll ghost you when she doesn't want you. And I feel like Miami's that same way because it's like you see what they can do, but we talked about how this defense could be a potential strength, but yet they're 26th in total defense, I think, right now. And it's just like, man, you want to root for them, but then they drop a dud against Buffalo, but then Buffalo turns around and then drops a dud in London to Jacksonville. So something's telling me that this division is going to come down to the wire between these two teams. What's your thought, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, for right now, I agree with Gary in the long run. I mean, it's hard to bet against Mahomes, 5 straight AFC championship games. But for right now, which is what we're talking about, I have the Dolphins as well. I wrote down speed in all caps because they have like the 7 fastest miles per hour. How they tell how fast the players are running, I don't know. But they have the 7 fastest speeds in the entire NFL this year, as far as it's like between 21 and 22 miles per hour. But the 7 fastest is the Dolphins, which is insane. But yeah, Jeff, they're number 1 in rushing yards, like you said, and it's funny. We both had that same thing. Number 1 in rushing yards, number 1 in passing yards. And number 1 in TDs, rushing, number 2 in passing touchdowns. So it's like they're scoring points, they're dominating both sides, and the fact that Jeff Wilson is coming back, and him and Mostert both were in San Fran with McDaniel. That's a big bonus too. They know the system, they know exactly what he wants. And last thing on this, his protection, Tua, obviously the injury concern. So far, 6 sacks in 5 games. It's pretty good.
That's jiu-jitsu.
That's pretty good.
And they have a good offensive line. Take note, my Giants. A decent offensive line and protect your quarterback, and look what you can do.
I can't help but laugh. Daniel Jones is running for his life every single play.
Oh, no doubt. I think there's a lot of teams that wish they had the offensive line because people sleep on that offensive line, man. I mean, look at Carolina Panthers, for God's sakes. Miles Sanders was a top 15 running back in fantasy the first 3 weeks, and he can't get no push on offensive line. He's got me 7 and 6 points, respectively. But anyway, Ben, we're going to push the baseball segment to the end just because I feel like we got a good flow going with football. Let's get to the rankings, to the power rankings if we can here. So, honestly, these power rankings, I was looking forward to it, gentlemen, because I think that it's going to come down to these 4 teams, and then there might be like another sleeper team. Buffalo. So I got San Francisco, Philly, Miami, Kansas City. Then I got the Lions, and then I got Buffalo at number 6 because of that loss against the Jaguars. I still think they have the chance to run the table and win 11 or 12 games for that division. I got the Lions at the 5th spot, but we just got to see more. We still gotta see a little bit more of the Lions. But San Francisco right now, I mean, guys, they got all those weapons. Ayuk, then McCaffrey, then I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of weapons that Brock Purdy has. You put Bryce Young in that system, it's scary to think. But anyway, Gary, your top 5 power rankings for NFL, and no worries, Ben, we will get to baseball.
I mean, really, we're gonna have a somewhat similar list. I think, I look at the 49ers as the most complete team. I thought they were the most complete team going into the season. And that was regardless of whoever they had at quarterback. I thought that team was loaded enough that it just didn't matter. But then you find out, hey, Brock Purdy's actually pretty good. Like, so much for being Mr. Irrelevant, But, so I have them as number 1. I think the Eagles are number 2. They're clearly the best team in the NFC East, and really kind of like just they really began to separate themselves. I've got the Chiefs 3, 4-1's 4-1, but like it just hasn't. I don't know. They're not. I think they're kind of mailing it in at this point of just like, look, we're better than everybody. If you beat us, it's because we're being lazy, not really motivated. Otherwise, we're gonna beat you senseless. Or I said this their games haven't been like. There's nothing flashy about this season for them thus far. This has just been an effective year for them. 4 and 5, I've been going back and forth about. I'm going to say for now, I have Seattle 4. I know it's a little high for them, but I think that they have enough firepower on that offense to make a run, to at least give San Francisco a little bit of a run for their money. I think they're there. They're somewhere on the rise. And then 5, Buffalo. I feel like again they've proven themselves to be a good, if not great, team who kind of like there's a lot of like lack of motivation because they know that the end game is December and January. So I feel like a lot of these games, again, I know I mentioned the phrase phoning it in a couple of times now. Buffalo's phoning it in, but I still feel like they're doing significantly better than other teams that are doing that. So,
Facts. Ben?
Yeah, so I feel like the top two is just unanimous. I mean, they're undefeated, and 49ers have obviously looked more impressive. So they obviously beat down my Cowboys, but always ride with my team, good or bad. So, but yeah, that was a complete beatdown. So 49ers won, Eagles 2. I got Miami at 3. I thought the Lions at 4, Chiefs at 5.
time out,
And
time out. Because I completely forgot about the Lions. So you sub out the Seahawks for the Lions. Sorry, continue, Ben.
no, you good. I had to put the Lions above the Chiefs because, sure, they didn't have Kelsey, didn't have Chris Jones, but still, Arrowhead is a tough place to play. Lions beat the Chiefs, so I got to put them ahead. But Chiefs are 4-1. So, I mean, my list is kind of like just based on records. If I'm being honest, it's just pretty simple: 5-0, 5-0, 4-1, 4-1, 4-1. I mean, I just kept it simple, to be honest.
I mean, record. I think record is important, and that's why I have Buffalo at like number 6. But I still think that like record. I feel like records in the NFL. I still think a team can have 1 or 2 more losses and still be ranked ahead in the power rankings in the NFL versus college because you still got the worst team in the NFL, the worst players in the NFL are still going to run yards on Big Ten players in the NFL. And like right now, if you put the Broncos up against maybe Georgia,
I was
it
going to say
might be like,
Georgia.
yeah, but I still think again.
I mean, the Broncos would win that
When
game.
you
Let's
think
just
about
be
it,
clear.
yeah,
The Broncos would
yeah,
win.
it might not
Even
be. Yeah,
even
it might
even
not.
even Carolina would beat Georgia. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, Thielen would run yards, but that's all I'm saying. But guys, like, do you see really any other teams? I try to wait until week 8. But before we move to baseball, like, do we feel that there's really any other teams outside of San Francisco, Philly, Miami, Buffalo, Kansas City? I feel it's going to be between those teams. It's going to be one of those that are in the AFC. I think it's going to either be San Francisco or Philly, like in the Super Bowl, and it's either going to be Kansas City, Buffalo, or Miami in the AFC. Like, can we say that it's enough of a sample size to say it's coming down to those 5 teams to win it all?
Yeah.
I would throw this tiny little caveat, and it's difficult to say this because they haven't done it and they haven't been there. And I'm not talking about the Cowboys, by the way. I'm talking about the Lions. And the Lions, it's hard because, like I said, they're relatively young. The coach is obviously hasn't been a coach for a long time, but there are 2 things that have been a saying forever in the NFL as far as what travels well: running game, offensive line. They got a great O-line. They got a great running game. And I think they got enough weapons, obviously, on offense, and they're protecting Goff enough. Like, I feel like, I mean, that's the formula that works in January. Offensive line and teams that can control possession with the running game. So, like, I'm not picking the Lions to go to the Super Bowl. That would be, like, too far out. I'm just saying, like, they can beat some of those teams. It only takes 1 game. It's not best out of 5, best out of 7. And Goff has been to the Super Bowl. You can say it's Gurley and his team, but still, he was the quarterback that went to the Super Bowl. So I'm just saying the Lions might make some noise. It's difficult to predict.
I want to say they can do it, but there's a reason why we forget that Jared Goff got traded was because his inability to be able to elevate the offense to be a consistent winner. And again, I'm with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I think they can do it. Marissa, if you're watching, I think we're all Team Lions, rooting for them. But I think in sports, there's something to be said about being there and learning how to win. And they're learning how to win the tight games in regular season, which was last year. Now they got to learn how to win the tough games like later this. But we'll see. They're like my next team. They're right there. They should run away with the division. But we'll see. Any other final thoughts, Gary, before we move forward?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Baseball. As a hometown guy, I was rooting for the Orioles. but they ran into a juggernaut of the Texas Rangers, who have been one of the most potent offenses in baseball. So I don't think we should be surprised, and I think the pitching is caught up with the Orioles. But they're going to be around for a very long time, and they've been one hell of a story. I have them. I have the Rangers win the World Series. I don't have that cheating, crappy team from Houston winning a damn thing. I hope. We're not even going to acknowledge them. Here's what I'm going to say about the Dodgers. The Dodgers are dodging when it matters the most. You can count on them to win 98 plus games a year, but when it matters most, unless there's a pandemic, they're just gonna show up, and they're gonna get eliminated tomorrow here in Phoenix. When I'm seeing them tomorrow, the Diamondbacks, Dodgers, and the Diamondbacks are going to eliminate the Dodgers tomorrow. That's all I'm gonna say. But Ben, your thoughts on baseball?
Yeah, so the Dodgers, I'm glad you went there. So they, in 11 years, 2013, 2023, they have 10 division titles. And out of those 11 years, they've won the World Series once. And they've only gone to the World Series 3 times out of all those 100-win seasons and division. They are literally the Braves of the 90s. The Braves won 14 straight, so it's a little bit different, but still 10 in 11 years is pretty darn similar. And both Braves, 14 straight division titles, 1 World Series. Dodgers, what we're talking about, 1 World Series. So, and they're down 0-2 to Arizona, like you said. And then I also kind of like the AL East had 3 teams make the playoffs, and pretty much all 3 are going to be gone. Obviously, the Rays and the Jays, Tampa Bay, Toronto, are already out. And then the Orioles are down 2-0 in the series and getting a beat down right now, losing 6-0 to the Rangers after 3 innings. So the Orioles are most likely going to be out. And they had, just a little bit curious here, they had 11 more wins than anybody else in the American League. So that's quite the upset. But it's just strange that the AL East had 3 teams make the playoffs and they're all going to be gone so early. So, that's what I had on baseball. And I like the Rangers pick, and they are hot. That's for darn sure. I'm sticking with the quote unquote favorites, which would be for me Braves versus Astros.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's fine. You want to add those cheating sacks of pieces of. It's okay. It's okay. But Gary, my fellow Yankee fan, talk.
I told y'all Baltimore's Fugazi. Anyway,
still a cute story though. It's still a cute story.
No, it's a fun story that this team that has perpetually sucked out of nowhere wins 101 games and wins the division. Like, good for them. I'm not going to sit there and completely like just credit their season, but there was nothing about them that said, "Oh, this is a team that's going to go all the way to the World Series," and you're seeing that. This is a team like this. Let's call them like the 17 Yankees that arrived a little bit underneath everybody's radar, like October. Like, oh wait, they're here, and maybe they're good. And we all know how the story ended in 20. But it's like I can see Baltimore being in that spot for the next couple of seasons, like between us, Tampa, the Yankees, and them, like that 3-team like fight for whoever's going to be the team leading the AL East, having the home field advantage in the playoffs. I think we're going to start to reach that point. But yeah, there's enough playoff tested players on the Rangers that doesn't make this sweep at all shocking. That we're going to assume is a sweep between Texas and Baltimore is shocking. No, because there's enough players on that roster that have been there and done that, compared to Baltimore, which is just there's a level of I'm just happy to be here with them. So, speaking about the Dodgers, they're another one of these like if not now when types, and Clayton Kershaw doing his best impersonation of Clayton Kershaw in the playoffs. I just continually just shitting the bed. had one magical offseason and one magical postseason in 2020. Like we've all said, it doesn't really count because it's kind of a short sprint to the playoffs, but still, beyond that, it's really kind of been more of the same. So I wasn't really shocked by that. I think we're looking at, I would like to see a Braves Rangers World Series. I think strictly for the offense of that, you're going to have games that are going to have double digit scores for sure. And I think that'll captivate more than the Astros would, more than, really, I guess, the Twins, who the Twins are there because somebody has to win the Central. And yeah, so.
Okay. Hey, that's all going to be rooting for the Twins to beat the snot out of those cheating team from Houston. Because, man, isn't that such a, I think if there's any franchise that is the worst run, the most hideous, the most nasty franchise, it is that team down in Houston. I mean, I don't even know how you can even go to that ballpark. It smells like poop.
You really feel.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying this is really, 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 really crappy. So let's get to these rankings, Ben. So I'm just gonna say it: Josh Allen, Tua, Pat Mahomes. That's my rankings. I got Josh Allen a little bit, but I just think it's too early. It's a little bit fluid. I think after week 10, I'll have a little more confidence, but I'm just going by Vegas odds right now. Those are kind of the top 3 teams. But your thoughts, Ben and Gary?
Yeah, so for NFL MVP right now, I went Tua 1, Purdy 2, and I know he's not going to win it, but like Tyreek Hill, I cannot ignore what the man is doing. I just can't ignore it. He is on it. Like, I get it. 5 weeks, it's hard to project 17, and I know that pace is pace, but his pace right now is 122 catches, 2,213 yards, and 17 touchdowns. I get it. It's a pace that he's not going to keep, but I'm very confident he's going to get close to 2,000. I think it's going to be like that Calvin Johnson year where he's in the 1900s, doesn't quite get there, but I know he's not going to win it. I know it's a quarterback, but on pace for over 2,000 yards and over 2,200 yards. I just can't ignore it. So I got him at number 3 for MVP.
Okay. Hey, not mad at it. Tyreek has been going off. He's been a freak. Tyreek's been a freak. Gary, your thoughts?
I'm gonna go Tua, Mahomes, Purdy. I think the reasons we've discussed over the last 40 some odd minutes, like Tua, that offense again, if he stays healthy, he's showing why he was drafted where he was drafted and that he was worth the trouble. Mahomes is in that LeBron Kobe era right now of mode.
Every year.
Like, we're not going to appreciate him until he's gone, and he's just gonna be like in the MVP race because of who he is, and because as long as Kansas City stay relevant, that's just who he is. And then Purdy, I think you can only ignore the stats but so long, and we can only keep hoping for this drop off, he's going to remember he's Mr. Irrelevant sooner rather than later. And here we are, he's 14-0.
9 starts.
Yeah,
9 regular season starts.
So in his regular season starts, he's undefeated. So, I'm saying,
and the one thing
that he has, sorry, Jeff, I mean, Ben, I know he has, a loaded offense, and really Christian McCaffrey could steal some votes from him if we're being honest, but this is a league that likes to reward the quarterback, and if there was anybody that was going to steal an MVP this year, it could be him.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, he clearly, anybody can recognize, has a ton of weapons. We all understand that. But it's the quarterbacks with San Francisco that have succeeded have been Garoppolo and him. Everybody else with Kyle Shanahan has not done well. So yes, he has a lot of weapons, but he's still I just don't want to I'm not saying that he gets hate or not enough credit because his life is quote unquote easy, but still he has to make difficult throws. He has to get the ball to those playmakers. And it's not as I feel like it's not as easy as people are like, oh, he just got to throw it 5 yards here. He's got to like get the ball
Yeah,
to the weapons. He's still got to do it. It's not as easy as
and
what people think. I feel like.
and I'm gonna plus one on that. Like with Purdy, I saw every single pass his last 2 games, and the passes that he's making, yeah, part of his coaching, but his awareness and his release and the throws that he's throwing it to where only the receivers can get to them. That is a level of NFL playing, but we forget that yes, he's Mr. Irrelevant, but he was a 4-year starter
And
at Iowa State.
there's some deep passes in there too.
Okay, yeah, but the man was a 4-year starter at Iowa State. And yeah, he didn't have necessarily the best players around him, but he still played at Iowa State with top competition 4 years in a row. So I think we need to give the man a little bit. I'm not saying you guys are doing it. I'm just saying everyone needs to give the man a little bit more credit. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. But anyway, let's get to any little takeaways. Gary, there's definitely have been a lot that have really stood out to me. But what I'm going to say is a general term because a lot of people on Twitter have been complaining all the injuries and all blah, 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 blah. Guys, injuries are part of football. Injuries are part of the game, and they're going to continue to be a part of the game. Okay? I get James Conner injury is terrible. Justin Jefferson injury is terrible. I get it. Okay? But my takeaway that I say to everyone is relax. There's going to be more injuries to your best players in fantasy. No excuses, and you just got to keep trucking along. That's just really it, Gary. It's just that, and I also think the Lions are for real. But anyway, your thoughts, Gary, and then we'll toss it to you, Ben.
So takeaway from week 5, the Lions the Lions are for real. I think that team, which has been the laughing stock and has been the looked after for the better part of my entire life, let's be honest. They're no longer the jokes, and really, we sat there and said maybe it could be Minnesota, but nobody trusts Minnesota. We said, Chicago, forget about it, and we sat here and went back and forth with Green Bay, and Green Bay may or may not be good, but we know for sure that this Detroit Lions team is a good team. We said it. I said it all last year. We've all said it. Dan Campbell can coach his ass off, and he has players on that team. He has that team ready to run through a friggin' brick wall for him. Any coach that can have that has the power and has the ability to go further. So I'm going to put this out here right now. Not only does Detroit win the NFC North, but I can see them making to the NFC Championship.
Oof. Okay. All right. And yeah, and then I'm gonna toss it to you. I'm gonna say that I think that's also real. And then just one more because it's on my mind, folks. Anthony Richardson is injury prone. Okay, 5 games. He can't. This is the 3rd game where he's. And I get it. It's an AC joint, but I'm just like, yeah, like I'm not. Like I don't want, but something, Ben. I wanted to text you the other day, but something's telling me Anthony Richardson is not going to reach his full potential because he can't stand the goddamn field. He missed the first game. He couldn't complete the first game because of a nagging knee injury. Then he had a concussion, missed game 2, and then missed all of game 3. Comes in, plays game 4. Then game 5. It's just injury after injury after injury. That's all I'm going to say. But Ben, finish this segment, sir.
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk about Dallas, but I'm first gonna be like, man, it just came to my mind, but Josh McDaniels, man, he is a horrible head coach. Oh my God. Like they won Monday night, but that decision to kick the 52-yarder was absolutely atrocious. You go for the win. And he did a similar thing against the Steelers, you guys are aware of. He kicked the field goal at the end on a 4th and short, and they never got the ball back. His decision-making as a head coach is just absolutely atrocious. He's very bad as a head coach.
He needs to go back. He needs to go back to his daddy in New England, like Bill O'Brien, and just live underneath that tree, because this is now the 2nd time you try to branch out, and it hasn't worked out for you at all. Like
Yeah.
some people are not meant to coach and be a head coach. And the more that I look at it, the more I look at Josh McDaniels, the more I'm like, yeah, you're a coordinator at best.
Just the decision making, and also like, I'm sorry, I know you got Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams, but Hunter Renfrow is pretty good at football. Like, he's a pretty good player. He's a pretty good player, and like, they don't even throw it to him. Like, they don't even give it to him. The fact that you got a weapon that, I mean, if you think about it, between Devontae, Jacoby, and Renfrow, technically that should be one of the best trios of wide receivers. And like, they just what happened to Renfrow? Like, he just doesn't.
They
get
should
the
be
ball.
scoring. Like we said, like we even said like last season, right? Like we said that this team. Now, I mean, like Carr and Garoppolo. I mean, I think Carr is a better quarterback, but I don't think he's by far that most like. I don't think he is so. His skill set isn't so far more superior than Garoppolo.
I get what you're trying to say. It's not really. It's not really. It's not really a downgrade.
It's not
like
it's
maybe
not
like a tiny bit, but like
And Garoppolo can still throw it deep sometimes because you see some of the throws that he does. You can't tell him he can't throw a deep ball. And then secondly, the dude's a winner. I mean, the dude is 42-19 as a starter. I mean, that's what matters. And this team with Josh Jacobs, who led the league in rushing, I am not saying that they should be like Super Bowl contenders, but there's no reason when you have a guy like Crosby who is annihilating offensive lines every year, and you got arguably one of the top 3 best receivers in the league and one of the best receiving corps, they shouldn't be this bad. But that's coaching.
Yeah,
that's all I'm gonna say.
Like it's just been clearly, we know in football more than any other sport, there are guys who are excellent coordinator or good or great coordinators that just can't do it as a coach. Wade Phillips, I'm gonna sit here and say, to me, he's a top 3 defensive coordinator ever. Like, and I know his father was great too, but Wade Phillips, like, he went to so many different teams that were horrible the year before and completely transformed them. Wade Phillips, to me, is a top 3 defense coordinator ever. He did amazing work as a coordinator, but he was really bad as a head coach. So, like, McDaniels is kind of, fits into that. He had a lot of success as a coordinator, but now in 2 tries as a head coach, he clearly hasn't learned anything from Denver. But
this all I'm going to say is, guys, this is his last shot to be a head coach. I mean, you can't question his football mind. Like, Josh McDaniels is a great football mind. Like, he's a great football mind. The man knows offenses. He knows football. But when it comes down to it, it's the managing of the game. It's the day-to-day management as a CEO of your team, and you're not doing what you need to do. But Gary, any other thoughts? And then I'm going to throw one question out. And go ahead, Ben.
No, I was just going to say, let me talk a tiny bit about the Cowboys and their embarrassing performance.
Go for it. Yeah, please do, because it was pretty pathetic.
I think that, like, I'm starting to get a vibe that, like, remember the Titans of like 2 years ago when they were ahead and playing well? They were like, you couldn't beat them. I feel like Dallas is sort of like that. They're front runners. When they're in the lead, when things are easy for Dak, like, they look great. But then when Dak's got to, like, play well, he just falls on his face. Like, Dak at this point is who he is. We know who he is. He's an above-average quarterback. He's a good quarterback, but he's not going to elevate you. It's just not going to happen. And it just, like, I just thought of that today, where it's like, the Titans a couple of years ago, when Derrick Henry was going, when the play action was going, like, they were really, really good when they were playing ahead. It seems like Dallas is the same way. Like, when you need Dak to play well, more times than not, he doesn't. So it was a very, I mean, obviously as Cowboys fans, very disappointing performance. 49ers are amazing, but, like, we fell flat on our face, and Dak, I mean, it's just, we know who he is, and I feel like at this point we know who Dallas is, a good regular season team, but they're not going to get it done in the playoffs. That's just what it is.
Yeah. I mean, Gary, you're shaking your head like, yeah, the Cowboys being the Cowboys, but speak your mind, sir.
No, I mean, I can't say too much. My Giants shit the bed yet again, but
Okay.
different, we much like Dallas, we lost to a juggernaut. The only difference is that Dallas was expected to be a juggernaut right alongside San Francisco. I will say this as my only mini gripe. Who the hell asked for the Packers and Raiders last night for Monday night? It turned out to be an okay game, but as I said to you guys offline, this wasn't an appetizing game or anything engaging before the season started. So who the hell asked for this now? Because I'm like, yeah.
The thing is, I could understand it if it was in Green Bay. Like Devontae Adams goes back to Green Bay.
Okay.
It would have made a little bit more sense. But the game was in Vegas. Like, if it was in Green Bay, it makes sense. But
yeah, they dropped the dud on that one. Like, I think that they need to pick matchups that are going to.
They need to just be able to flex all season long and not just the second half of the season.
Yeah,
absolutely. I would have put San Francisco and Dallas in the Monday night spot. I would have taken the Eagles and Rams and made that Sunday night football. And this Packers-Raiders game could be 4:25 or whatever time you want it.
I mean,
not prime time by any stretch.
I mean, no Baltimore. You got Baltimore. You got Ravens Steelers. You don't do that Monday night.
You can do that.
You don't do Ravens Steelers.
There were enough. Listen, even though it was a blowout, you could have done the Dolphins and Giants on Monday. Like, there were enough other matchups that you could have done. There was nothing about the Packers and the Raiders that screamed to me, this is a game that I need to sit down and watch. Yeah. I didn't. Yeah. I watched mostly the Friday night. So,
well, Gary, that's your gripe. There you go. Gary's gripes, everyone. Gary's gripes. But hey, we do have a hard stop here at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Guys, week 6. Real quick, what is one matchup that you're looking forward to next week, and then we will conclude. Gary, you first, and Ben. Real quick, like 5 seconds, and we'll be done.
Oh, now I gotta look at the schedule. Shoot, Ben, go ahead.
I gotta be honest. I'm gonna be selfish and say Dallas. How do they respond? It's not an easy game. Okay. Play the Chargers off a bye. Like, I gotta see what are they gonna do.
All right, there we go. And and I think for me, it's gonna be this Broncos Kansas City game. I want to see by how many points we're gonna lose by. Is it gonna be by 30 or is it gonna be by 40? Because but you know what? You know what I think is gonna happen? I think that this game is gonna be a lot closer because the fourth quarter, we're gonna lose probably by 15. I'll say that, Gary.
The one matchup which before the season started didn't seem to be that interesting, but now all of a sudden is the 4:25 matchup between Detroit and Tampa Bay. Like that one is all of a sudden going to be more like like can Baker Mayfield keep this momentum going? Because now you're going against a good team at home, so.
Off their bye too.
Off their
bye. Bucks off their bye.
I feel like if the Bucks are going to actually be relevant and be this, if they're gonna go back to back in the NFC South, this is where this is a game you got to win.
It's a prove it game. Yep, I like it.
There we go. I love it. But guys, you know what? Hey, it's been fun. Love getting back at it. Hopefully, Marissa, if you're watching, hopefully everything works out for you, and hopefully we get some good news soon of a current situation. We will not put your business out there, but we're rooting for you. Well, everyone, just pray for me this Thursday, okay? Pray for me, because we's about to get a beatdown, one like no other, and if we give up 70 points in 2 weeks in 2 games this season, I don't know if I could be a fan anymore.
No, I think
I'm going 33-6. I don't think it's going to be a huge blow.
33.
No, I'm saying I don't think we're going to see 40 or 50 points. I think that Andy Reid that team doesn't need to drop 40 or 50 points. They just need to win games and be right. So.
Yeah.
Okay. All right now. All right. Well, to all of our listeners, that's been fun. We'll be back next week for episode 107. Until next time, hail Von Miller. Peace and love.